Today's discussion is going to be on module 53 on the concept of sexual development. Much of this we've surfacely touched upon already, but we're going to get a little bit more in detail about it. Let's start with one of the concepts we've talked about before is biology of the sex of the child. Comes in the 23rd pair of the chromosomes. Who determines that? We've already talked about this. The father. The contribution of the X and the Y or the XX chromosome, whatever has it be. We do know that after the 7th week, after conception, a single gene of the Y chromosome throws the master switch, which triggers the testes to develop and produce what is known as testosterone, which we've talked about before. The main androgen, the male hormone that promotes male sex organs development. The changes begin in the fetal stage of development. Different patterns of males and females develop under the influence of testosterone and the female's ovarian hormones. As we take a look at things like height as a characteristics, girls surge ahead of boys as a result of their early puberty development, but boys naturally come up by the age of 14. So what changes occur? Well, we see the development of what is called the primary sex characteristics, or reproductive organs of the males and females that make us different. The secondary sex characteristics develop as well. As girls develop breasts, larger hips, boys have facial hair, they begin growing deeper voices. Excuse me. And those are the changes that occur. So when does this occur? This occurs as boys reach what is called spermarchy, when they're able to produce sperm, as we've talked about. And for the girls, it is menarche. And those genes play a major role in predicting when girls produce. So what changes occur between boys and girls as a result of going through puberty? Here is a chart that shows you what changes occur as we go on through puberty. There is a condition at birth in which male and female chromosomes, hormones, and in the anatomy possess biological sexual characteristics of both, also known as hermaphrodite or intersex. For example, genetic male may be born with normal male hormones, testes, but no penis, or a micropenis, or such individuals may struggle with their gender identity. Dramatic improvements, as we saw here in the South African track star, race, excuse me, to test sex testing in 2009. As we begin to see girls, for example, having physical characteristics that are not typically male or female. She, though, was cleared for competing as a woman. But this gets also into political discussions in the United States that go with some of the, for example, executive orders passed by President Biden about transitioning males to females competing with female sports. Very controversial issue. Compared to older adults, the CDC says that sexually active adolescents are at a definite higher risk. Why do you think that is? Well, the brains are not fully developed. We're not making the best decisions and so on. And so, therefore, making decisions about protective sex and so forth do play a role. So, for example, we get into this chart as communication about birth control, the impulsivity of teenagers, the use of alcohol and its effect in decision making, and today's mass media, which we've talked about the influence on children today, is whether or not it's condoning that kind of activity. Some of the environmental factors as we get into contributing to whether or not we restrain from engaging in sexual activity. The higher intelligence indicates the less likely. The more religious people will not engage. The fact of the father, which we've talked about before, the father's presence being a factor. Service learning participation. Those who serve more will tend to less likely engage in sexual activity. We talked about sexual orientation, our enduring sexual attraction. What's the difference between that and gender identity and so forth? We've talked about. Today, psychologists view sexual orientation as neither willfully chosen or willfully changed, which is a change throughout history. So, what roles play a factor of the hypothalamus in sexual orientation? Here gives a good chart um, that takes a look at that as well. Um, Prenatal environment that influences sexual orientation. Elevated rates of homosexual orientation and identical and fraternal twins suggest the influence not only of shared genes, but also shared prenatal environment. So that is a overview of sexual development, and we'll see you on Thursday.